Good morning. It's 6:04 a.m. on KRSL. Russell. Coming up, we've got the weather and the news from the Kansas Ag Network. But first, a big salute to those seniors graduating from Russell High School today.
It's a small town in America's heartland. But today is no ordinary day in Russell, Kansas. It's graduation day in Russell. And a local boy has come home. Home to the source of his strength and his values. Home to the town he's never really left.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Senator Bob Dole.
This is a very special occasion for me to be back in my hometown. Whoever said you can't come home again didn't know Russell, Kansas, or the house on Maple Street where a volunteer fireman taught his sons to play ball, and his wife conducted sewing classes to ease the hardship that folks even before 1929 called the Great Depression. The world has turned over many times since I received my diploma in the old Russell High School. And on the surface, a lot has changed since the spring of 1941. But think of what hasn't changed since that time. Now as then, the true strength of Russell lies in her people. Now as then, Russell is still ready to come to the aid of those in need, and I know that to be a fact.
Bob Dole's America starts in Russell, Kansas, where he was born on July 22nd, 1923. He was raised with two sisters and a younger brother in a frame house on Maple Street. During the Depression, the Dole family moved into their basement and rented out the main floor of their house. George Dawson, a neighbor.
Bob, no, he wasn't from a rich family. His mother sold Singer sewing machines, and his dad ran the creamery down here at the end of the street. And they worked awfully hard. They worked very hard.
Bob Dole's brother, Kenny.
We never had a whole lot, and we never lacked for anything. That's kind of a situation it was. We had all the things we really needed.
In 1939, Bob entered Russell High School. To help his family make ends meet, Dole worked after school at Dawson's drugstore.
And he was a good athlete. He got up and ran every morning. And he played football and basketball. Very popular. Yes, very popular. That's why we hired him as a soda jerk.
After graduating from Russell High School, Bob Dole enrolled in the University of Kansas. He planned to become a doctor. But in 1943, Bob Dole's plans, along with those of thousands of other young Americans, had to wait. America was at war.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
But I ended up, like nearly everybody else, in uniform. I was shipped overseas, fresh, young, second lieutenant. They were in combat. We made a couple of patrols and a couple other minor skirmishes, then we pushed off.
On April 14th, 1945, as part of Operation Craftsman, the 2nd Platoon of I Company, under Lieutenant Bob Dole's command, is ordered to take Hill 913. As Dole and his men advanced up the hill, hidden German machine gun and mortar positions rained down heavy fire. Casualties were heavy. Of the several hundred men to go up Hill 913, only a few dozen made it to the top.
He got shot up badly in Italy. And the reason he got shot up is his radio operator was wounded, and he went after him and put him on his shoulder and carried him back.
After lying wounded in a foxhole for almost 9 hours, Dole was rescued by medics and brought with the other wounded by litter to the 15th Evacuation Hospital and then sent home. Lieutenant Bob Dole was completely paralyzed. He spent 39 months in hospitals. His brother Kenny brought him home to Russell on the train.
It was devastating, no doubt about it. And when I saw Bob last, he was 180-some pounds and a tremendous athlete and very active and very much involved. And then when I first saw him laying in that bed at 110 pounds, it was pretty hard to take.
Bob Dole refused to give up. With unfailing determination, he learned to walk again.
And after the VA had done all it could, a pioneering doctor extended hope of further recovery if young Dole could only travel to a hospital in Chicago.
There were some hospital costs involved, and the Dole family simply didn't have the money at that time, and not many other people did either.
So they started to fund out the VFW, and then I think every store in town had a Bob Dole box where people dropped money in.
They do what they do in a town this size in central Kansas. You do what you can to help out.
Bob Dole never forgot their help, and no senator has ever worked harder to help the people of his state. That help was never needed more than last year, April the 26th.
Oh man, look at this!
It was a rumbling black monster that hit south central Kansas, chewing up blocks at a time, stretching a half a mile wide. Winds roared 250 miles per hour, cars wedged against trees, entire neighborhoods wiped out. For some families, hand-crocheted pillows buried in the mud were all that remained.
Within hours after it happened, Bob Dole had the President of the United States on the phone. He pushed the red tape aside to speed up disaster relief, helping so many victims with his quick action. I know because I saw it.
To help us rebuild, Senator Dole secured urgently needed funds for disaster assistance and to rebuild McConnell Air Force Base. He won the funds to bring Kansas the most advanced early warning tornado detectors in the country. And now, communities throughout Kansas will also be installing over 200 storm sirens because of Bob Dole's work.
We have worked together side by side in the United States Senate for 14 years. I know Bob and respect him. Bob Dole is someone that Kansans can count on. We always have.
When you or your child are sick, your first worry shouldn't be medical bills. That's why Bob Dole has a new plan to make health care more affordable without letting big government play doctor or raising our taxes.
My plan gives tax credits to families and businesses to aid in the purchase of health insurance. It makes health insurance premiums 100% tax deductible for the self-employed, increases funding for preventing care such as immunizations, and creates a state-financed health program for low-income Americans who are not now eligible for Medicaid. It's also voluntary. It's not another mandate from the federal government. The plan will work. It will make health care more affordable and more accessible for all Americans.
Right now, with every tick of the clock, our national debt is growing by $9,000 a second, $1 billion a day, spending away our future, weakening our economy, threatening Kansas jobs. Like most Kansans, Bob Dole is a strong supporter of the Balanced Budget Amendment. He's respected by both Republicans and Democrats as the Senate's leading deficit fighter. Bob Dole is a tough, principled American, prepared to do what's necessary to deal with the deficit. If he's your senator, you ought to be proud. Presidential candidate Paul Tsongas, Democrat. Dole has courageously fought to eliminate the deficit. Senator Lloyd Bentsen, Democrat. We need Bob Dole to cut the deficit and create jobs. Senator Nancy Kassebaum, Republican.
From agriculture to holding down taxes to fighting the deficit spending that threatens our jobs and paychecks, Bob Dole has been a leader for concerns of Kansas. We need Bob Dole to protect our tax money and bring discipline to Washington again. On many difficult and complex issues, Bob has been the glue that held us together, kept us at the table, persuaded the White House to listen, and helped both sides of the aisle in the Senate to find a solution. I have never believed that anyone was irreplaceable, but Senator Dole comes as close as anyone I know.
It was Bob Dole who led the bipartisan effort to rescue our Social Security system, earning the praise of senior citizens' leading advocate, the late Claude Pepper, who said, "We could never have produced the package without your skill. You never lost hope and faith in our accomplishing the immeasurable task of saving Social Security as a sound and solvent institution for the next 75 years. Through the years, it's been Bob Dole who's led the fight in the Senate for a strong national defense and brought us to this new day of peace, opportunity, and hope, where former enemies are now Kansas trading partners and friends. Bob Dole, in 40 years as a public man, he's met the challenge of government through leadership that's been tested and proven time and time again. A Kansas voice that speaks for all Americans.
We have a lot of problems in America. You know, we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of us in politics make mistakes. Our government makes mistakes. Even maybe some in the audience have made a mistake or two, so none of us are perfect. But compared to what? As I've said many times, in the 27 years I've been in the Congress in my state of Kansas, I've never had a single letter from anybody in Kansas saying, "Bob, get me out of this awful country." But I've had a lot of requests and a lot of letters from a lot of people saying, how can I get my mother into America? How can I get my husband, my children? America's a pretty good place. And we want to make it better. We want better opportunities, yes, for young farmers, and better opportunities for our children, and better opportunities not only in education, but in the private sector, in agriculture, wherever it may be. And that's what's so exciting about 1989, 1990, and beyond. I happen to believe we're just on the threshold of many, many opportunities. And I believe the American people, whether you're Democrats or Republicans or independents, are looking for strong leadership. Someone who can take charge, somebody who understands government, somebody who's worked with the Congress, Democrats and Republicans, and someone who's had the experience and the confidence, and I would say as a Republican, I believe I understand the needs and the desires of those who might be disabled. I believe I understand the desires of some who only want enough to eat or a place to sleep. And I certainly believe I understand the hopes of many in agriculture who just want to make a living for their family, send their children to school, pay their bills, buy machinery, whatever it is. And I think we have an obligation to all those people. And I'm an optimist. If I weren't an optimist, I wouldn't be standing here today. I think I've been tested. I think I understand. I can't solve every problem. The government can't guarantee success. We can't guarantee that no one will fail in America. I think I said we all have pretty much the same ideas and the same hopes and the same dreams. And we have more opportunities here than anybody I know of. So I want to be a part of it. I happen to believe that most Americans, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or independents, kind of like to feel that the people that work for them, those of us in public office, really understand that what their life might be like. I'm not talking about the people that show up for the big fundraiser. I'm talking about the average voter who really doesn't pay much attention to politics, who really believes in the system, and who likes to believe whoever leads that system, Democrat or Republican, is really someone from the people, somebody who's made it the hard way, somebody who's climbed up the ladder with a lot of help from a lot of people. And then once they got up there, they didn't forget where they came from, and they kept looking back to see if they couldn't maybe give a hand to somebody else. And that's what America's all about. And I think the small town, the war experience, I think I've been tested in a lot of ways, and then going on to Congress and then being in the Senate, that's a big jump for somebody from a small town like Russell, Kansas. The thing you need to remember as you leave, and I say it with the utmost sincerity, is that you come from a very special place. There's something about the place you come from, whether you're gone for a day or a week or a year or 10 years, that I think leaves a great imprint on what you may do in the future. Most of all, I hope that wherever you go and whatever you do, that a little bit of Russell will go with you. For then I know that you'll be well guided. My friends, I hope you will never forget our state motto, to the stars through difficulties. I hope that you will never stop looking up at the stars. So I thank you all for listening. I thank my many friends for coming, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.